Okay, so the question is about consequences and how adult imposed consequences can work through a trauma-informed lens. So just to start out, know that when I'm talking about my 4 buckets of consequences, I'm talking about that thinking of children with challenging behaviors that are most likely the result of social and emotional differences, most likely at a significant level. Okay, so like the kids that aren't just trying things out for the first time or socially navigating the world, but understand the social world. We're talking about the kids whose body either doesn't regulate in the way that we expect, and so their access to interrupt that regulatory process or that hijack of that lower brain taking over isn't quite solid yet, or the kids whose social understanding of context and how they fit into the world in which they're placed all the time is they don't have all the pieces they'll need to be able to have a punishment system connect. Okay, so we got to think about the kids we're talking about here. So my 4 basic buckets that I think about are natural consequences, contrived consequences, logical consequences, and instructional consequences. Natural consequences, we don't make those up. They just happen, right? So because of my skin tone, if I walk outside and I don't have sunblock on, I get burned. Natural consequence of not putting on sunblock. Right? It happens. I can pre-plan for it. I know it's going to happen. So it's one of those things I could prevent, but it's a natural consequence if I don't. Contrived is typically what we think about some of those punishment systems that we were actually taught as educators and how to deal with behavior. But basically contrived means it's not connected. So an example of that would be your ladder system. You are talking too loud, so I'm going to move you to a blue. You're a little loud. I'm going to move you to blue. There's nothing about blue in the position on this chart that connects to being loud, right? They don't connect. It is just, okay, I'm going to say this because this is what it is. It's a public shaming method that invokes guilt and social understanding and to try to fit back to conformity and rules because they don't have the skill set that they can access all the things they need to be successful in that system. It's the same thing like a child, I don't know, says F you and you call mom, right? Calling mom doesn't have any direct correlation to the fact that they, in your mind, have disrespected using language that's not appropriate, okay? You're calling mom, again, for a socially based reaction. And so, again, we're outside of that working because the children we're talking about right now don't have, or most likely don't have either strong enough, their skills are emerging, or their skills, we assume they have things that maybe aren't layered in enough for them to be able to have a path that is successful in our expectations. So the last 2, these are the ones I really like because these are the ones that when you're really thinking about showing up with a cultural and equity lens, knowing that everybody doesn't have to fit my expectations as a social world. We meet people where they're at and who they are, but also and where they at in their understanding and their skills. But these 2 reaction systems can help. Logical is when things match. So I usually use the example of the bulletin board. So a student goes and he rips down my bulletin board, which any teacher that has put up a bulletin board in their life knows they're not like, they don't go up in like 2 seconds. And a really pretty one, especially one with like really nice student work, like that takes a long time. So there is some connection to that bulletin board that we all have as educators who have put that bulletin board up. Yeah, there's a lot of layers to taking out a bulletin board. So child's body loses control, he rips down the bulletin board. Now we've gotten him safe and calm and he's sitting next to me and I say, hey man, that bulletin board was really hard to put up that first time. And I'm a little hurt that it's torn down. And I know your body had a big reaction and we can't go back and change that, but hey, will you help repair this with me and repair this relationship? Because I'm a little hurt. I'm a little sad that bulletin board's down. Will you help me put it back up? So we're going to have you're going to stay in recess if you're, help me put this bulletin board back up, right? And that all happens logically connected to the relationship, to the actual, hey, something happened, we now need to repair. The relationship part's the important part, not totally the bulletin board, not the staying in from recess, right? It's we got to fix this together. It happened, body reaction happened, and And so we're not going to focus on that piece. We're going to focus on the building of the relationship because it's logically connected to what broke, which was really a relationship piece, not the bulletin board. It's not about the bulletin board. It's about the effort it took for me to put it up there. It's the invasion of my space. It's the violent act coming out, right? It's now I think about this child in a different way because they had this huge violent reaction. Okay, it's not about the bulletin board. Then there is instructional. So again, when the child is already de-escalated, you're not going to add more information to a child that's in a hijack mode. You got to help de-escalate that first. So your first response and reaction to a child might be just totally soothing and de-escalating in whichever way that is. And then when we get to it, we have this instructional piece where we're actually supporting the skill sets from where they're at. So if the example of the bulletin board, if the child's body is getting hijacked at the amygdala, right, they're getting triggered and they're going through that fight, flight, or freeze at any different level on a regular basis, that's where I'm going to start looking at my instructional range. And whether it's helping that child understand their own body, right? So some of our kids don't even know what it feels like. They say, I'm angry. Okay, what's angry feel like? What's it look like, sound like in your body? Because once we start identifying how our body's reacting, then we can start putting language to it and talking about it. Then, right, it's like name it to tame it, like Dan Siegel says. Then we can start moving into those ideas of coping, and coping strategies that might actually help interrupt that hijack system. Okay, might help interrupt that hijack system. It's not a guarantee because some kids are their bodies are so entrenched in this cycle of the amygdala having all of the brain energy that's really hard to interrupt. And so we've got to meet them where they're at. And then we look at working at instructional pieces. So that might look like, oh, we've identified that I'm sad. What could be some things that you could do to help repair this relationship? So the instructional, if he had all the regulatory pieces and we're talking about instructing on repairing relationships, I can then go into that. None of the consequence buckets have to work in isolation. They often work alongside each other and with each other. But those are my 4 basic understanding of consequent buckets, logical and instructional being an educator's 2 most valuable ones moving forward. So I hope that helps.